Hello and welcome to Creator Weekly for the week ending September 28, 2025. I'm Peggy Kay, and this week there's some updates from YouTube, Twitch, Spotify, Linktree, and some others. So thank you so much for joining me today. If you're here live, I'd love to hear what you think about this week's updates. So let's get started with an update from YouTube. You can now hide YouTube end screens. Those are the overlays you see at the end of a video. They can be up to 20 seconds long. And sometimes it can be frustrating because the end screen obscures part of the video. So I'll show you on mine. All right, this is my end screen. Obviously, I don't have a lot of action when I'm just talking, but if you don't like all these overlays, what you can do is click the hide button at top right. You click the hide button and voila, the end screens are gone. Now, this setting does not stick. You have to do it for each individual video. So you probably don't want to do it every time. For creators, YouTube says these changes should not decrease views of end screens more than 1.5%-ish. I'm not sure if that's because most people don't watch videos all the way to the end screens, or if people just don't bother to click or what. But as a creator, it's probably worthwhile trying to figure out how to position the elements in the end screen so they minimize obscuring the video if you want people to actually look at the end screen. So that is my top update for YouTube this week. And there's a few other updates. YouTube also said that the watermark, that is that little icon you can add to all your videos, that has always worked where if you hover your cursor over it, it expands and there's a subscribe button. And the change they're having, and the change is that it will no longer turn into a subscribe button. So the watermark will still be there. You can still add a watermark to your videos, but people can't subscribe from there. And YouTube says that affects less than 0.1% of subscriptions. So it's pretty clear they're removing this because people were not using this to subscribe. And it kind of makes sense, right? If someone's watching the video, they know where the obvious subscribe button is on the video watch page. They don't need this extra button. Now, is it worth having a watermark on top of your videos? I don't know. I have it on mine, but I was partially having it there for the subscribe button. I don't know. I may take it off. But those are the updates that are most interesting. Also on YouTube, there is a new feature for US-based premium subscribers called YouTube Labs. This, helps shape the future of AI on YouTube. So you get access to some experimental AI features. And you go to youtube.com/new and see what experiments you can join. It's not just the YouTube Labs AI experiments. Premium subscribers get access to a bunch of things. The current experiment is in the YouTube Music app. As you listen to radio and mixes, AI hosts will chime in with relevant stories and insights. To me, that sounds absolutely terrible. If I'm listening to music, I don't want some random AI host telling me fun facts, but it might be interesting to listen to it and see if it's kind of a fun thing. So I'll just note that Craig says, creators should allow for the end screens and not put anything important at the end. Yeah, I think that's sort of the idea. Way back when I used to add like a card at the end of videos that I could put the end screen on. I mean, the thing is, though, people weren't watching that anyway, so it was just added stuff. I think if you make it too boring, people just click away. So if you want people to actually see the end screens, it has to be visually enticing enough for people to do that and not just click on to the next video. But you don't want to obscure anything important, so it takes some planning. Andrew says, can we reshape it as so AI is in the past? Yeah, no. This is the age of AI features in everything. I wonder if we will look back 5 years, 10 years from now and go, what were we thinking way back then? Or maybe AI will have taken over everything and it'll be like, of course there was AI. Who knows? It'd be interesting to see. So there's also several YouTube updates making managing comments easier. If you have comments and you go into YouTube Studio, you can now filter for new replies to your responses. This is really helpful because before you couldn't do that. You could just filter for comments that didn't have any replies at all. So it was hard to find those conversations with updated comments. And they have a new option to sort by most relevant comments. You can see on the screenshot that is the default, but you can also sort by newest comments as well. It's kind of a balance, right? Most relevant comments can be useful if you get lots and lots of comments and you want to make sure you see the most relevant ones, but then you're probably missing some comments as well. And then on the third screenshot there is you can set a default filter when you're managing your comments in the mobile YouTube Studio app. Before that was just on desktop. So all of these are, small updates to make it easier to take care of comments for your channel. Then I wanted to finish the YouTube updates with something that's been kind of controversial. YouTube will be allowing some creators with terminated channels back on the platform. And YouTube said this will be a limited pilot project that will be available to a subset of creators in addition to channels terminated for policies that have been deprecated. So there's two things going on here. First, YouTube says, well, we updated some policies and channels terminated under those old policies should be reinstated, or at least have a chance to be reinstated. And then there's also apparently going to be some kind of pathway for channels that were terminated to maybe appeal or something. YouTube has not given a lot of details about this, I should say. They haven't given any details about this. Hopefully more information will clarify it, although the way the news is going is that this is about allowing channels that spread COVID and election misinformation back on the platform. Those policies have been updated since 2020. This certainly sounds at least partially political. And of course, part of that is that's how it's being spun by politicians. It's like, oh, well, YouTube was censoring people before, but now they're going to be uncensored. Yeah. It will be interesting to see if only members of the current US administration get their channels back, or if this is much broader than that. But I think this kind of sucks, but this is the way it's going. This is like the change on Meta. It's like, oh, we don't care about misinformation or hate speech anymore. Go ahead, guys. Yeah, not happy about it. I do want to say hello to all the folks in the chat. I see Joan and Andrew and Craig. Thank you for joining me today. And thank you for making interesting comments. That keeps the conversation going. I love to hear how you guys think about all these updates. So let's move over to Twitch. Twitch has launched Stream Rewind, which lets viewers pause, rewind, and resume streams. Now, you're watching this live stream on YouTube, and you're probably used to YouTube's DVR feature, which is basically this, where you can come in and the live stream is going, but you missed the first part, so you can basically rewind, go back to the beginning and watch. And then if you've watched an earlier clip and you want to rejoin live, you can do that easily. Now this is available on Twitch. I'm kind of surprised they didn't have this before, but I think part of it is it requires Twitch to store these videos in a way where they can be accessed like this. Now, starting out, this is not available to everyone. Only Twitch affiliates and partners can enable the rewind feature on their live streams. And on the viewer side, only accounts that have a channel or turbo subscription will see these controls. It's interesting. Twitch says they're limiting who can use these controls because these subscribers typically don't see ads during streams. And that allows Twitch to focus on perfecting ad delivery before making Stream Rewind available to everyone. So I guess that's complicating things, the way they implement the mid-roll ads during live streams. With people rewinding, maybe they miss it. I don't know how that works on Twitch exactly. On YouTube, they sort of dynamically insert the ads, so I guess it's not a problem. Eventually, though, all viewers on Twitch will be able to have access to these controls. So that seems like a nice update. A few small things. StreamYard added an option to share a link with a QR code that appears on the screen. This is especially good if you have viewers using TVs, but you can see Restream. Restream already has that feature. It's good to see StreamYard getting more features since, they raised their prices. And then heading over to Instagram. Instagram says they have reached 3 billion monthly active users. Incredible, huge numbers. They say this growth has been driven by messaging, reels, and recommendations. So this is not about, your friends posting their photos. And they say they're going to really focus on those features because they're driving engagement. They say that one of the first things they're going to do is let you tune your algorithm by indicating what topics in Reels you're interested in. So those are the videos on Instagram. You can indicate the topics you like, the topics you don't like, and that will affect your Reels stream. It's, yeah. Instagram is kind of interesting the way their algorithm works. It's very sensitive to what you've watched previously. So I feel like I watch one video on one topic, and then I see a whole bunch of videos. Maybe this will help moderate that a bit. I wanted to mention what Andrew just said in the chat. I hate how ads beside the videos take over the audio on YouTube. It should be the other way around. Yeah, so there is a new format for live stream video ads on YouTube where instead of inserting a mid-roll as people are watching, instead it's a side-by-side thing. So the main live stream shrinks and you see a video ad next to that, but the ad audio takes over the live stream audio. But the previous mid-roll ads, it just took over the whole live stream and you missed part of it if an ad played. Neither is great. It would be much better if people always used, ad breaks to insert their ads, but that isn't always logistically possible. I also wanted to mention another Meta update. So if you have the Meta AI app or you use meta.ai on the web, they launched something called Vibes. Vibes is a feed of AI generated videos, and it also has an option to generate your own videos and share them to Reels or within that feed. Also, if you're on Instagram and you see a Meta AI video, there should be a little icon on the reel. You can click that and you can remix it in Vibes. You know, my feeling is they always show these AI generated videos that look pretty good, but in reality, I've seen a ton of them that are just slop. They're just awful. And it just, I don't have any interest in seeing a whole feed of low effort AI generated videos. Where's the craft work? Where's the interest there? But Meta's going all in. AI, AI, AI. Mhm. And then just a quick update. Um, Here in the US, of course, you know that TikTok was supposed to be moved to US ownership or be banned. And that was supposed to go into effect in January. They said, okay, there's an extension. It won't be enforced because there's no deal yet. And then they gave it another extension, and then they gave it another extension. Now it sounds like they're very close to a deal. I mean, it's being published as if it's a done deal, but I'm not going to say that because the Chinese government has to sign off on it, and they have not said that this is a done deal. And apparently, US owners are going to include a group that includes Larry Ellison and Oracle, the Murdochs, Michael Dell of Dell Computer. So it's a bunch of conservative rich guys who are going to own this. And ByteDance, TikTok's parent company, will retain less than 20% ownership, but they'll still have an ownership there. Supposedly, the algorithm is going to be retrained on just US user data, and there is apparently going to be oversight from the US government. And President Trump has already said he'd love to see it 100% MAGA content. So we'll see what actually happens. How is this going to affect viewers and creators? It's unclear. Obviously, the algorithm is going to change. I suspect there's going to be an update in the terms to that affect the policies around misinformation and probably hate speech. Yeah, we will see. We will see. So that's the current status. Again, as far as I can tell, the Chinese have not said that this is a done deal. So maybe it's not a done deal. Right. So I want to move over to Spotify now. We've been talking about generative AI content, lots of slop out there. And so Spotify has finally said they're going to do something about it on the platform because it's affecting artists. So they have updated their impersonation policy to only allow vocal impersonation in music or voice clones if the impersonation is authorized by the artist, which seems like how it should have been at the beginning. So, if you have your AI thing, you should not generate a song that sounds like Taylor Swift unless you have Taylor Swift's permission. And they are also working better to prevent the unauthorized delivery of music to an artist profile. My impression is that this has been all automated. And so these spammers, they generate these fake songs, and then they put metadata or whatever in there. They get delivered to the official artist's profile, who end up with this kind of AI slop on their profile, but the money from that is going to the spammers. And that's the other thing they're going to do. They say they're improving their spam filters to identify spammy uploads and stop recommending them. The reason this is important is that there's a pool of money that gives artists royalties. And some of these, mostly AI generated songs, that they are churned out in the millions, and they're basically sucking up the royalties of real artists, which doesn't make the real artist happy. And again, this is something they should be really working on quickly, and it'll be interesting to see how well they do that. The third thing that they're doing is helping develop a new standard for AI disclosures in music credits. As you know, for photos and videos, there's these standardized metadata information that gives an idea of how generative AI was used. Is this just for editing? Is it completely generated? On the image side, this is something Adobe is working on, Google, all the big platforms. Now Spotify says they want something similar for music, because there's a difference between using an AI tool that maybe just removes background noise versus using AI to completely generate the song imitating somebody else's voice. So that's not there yet, but they're working on it. And it kind of feels like all these platforms are just not ready for the huge volume of slop that gets produced. Even if each song, for example, only gets 100 listens, if people are posting thousands and thousands of songs, that all adds up and it kind of pollutes the whole platform. So we'll see if they can actually make a dent in that. And then I wanted to talk briefly about Linktree. Excuse me. So on a lot of platforms, only one link is allowed, or only one link is really visible. And so people make like a little landing page. They say, my link is in my profile. Linktree is one of the main platforms to do that. And what they're doing is adding more tools to make that landing page prettier, more engaging. The things they're doing, there's an enhance with AI feature, and that's going to recommend updates based on what's working on other Linktree profiles. So this is, I think, one of the useful things that we're seeing. This is similar to YouTube's inspiration tool, where it's using data from the platform about what works to make recommendations. Does it mean everything's going to start looking more samey? That I don't know. They are adding integration with Canva. Canva is, the graphic design program. The idea is that you can use those tools on Canva to make something that looks nice. And as a good deal, if you have Linktree Premium, that comes with a Canva Pro subscription. So you get both. I don't know if that's just for a limited time or in the long term. You can restyle your profile image with AI. So you have a profile photo and you can turn it into a sketch or a cartoon. They're going to suggest titles for your links. So instead of just saying my YouTube channel, it says something more interesting than that. Oh, watch me talk about something. I don't know. Obviously, I'm not good at those titles. And then they're also adding a bunch more themes, fonts, and layouts to Linktree, so you can pick those. Pro subscribers can add video, profile pictures, and looping backgrounds, make everything in motion. So this is a major upgrade to how you can make your Linktree profile look. And it's nice. There's a free version. You can use that and still make it look nice. And then just briefly, there is a new Google AI tool to play with called Mixboard. This is what they call a concepting board. That's a term I've never heard before, but it's, brainstorming visual ideas. You can use your own images. You can use AI to generate images. You can use Nano Banana to edit your images or combine images together. So it's sort of like visual brainstorming. This is in public beta in the US, and you can give it a try at labs.google/Mixboard. So just really quickly, what was happening 10 years ago this week. 10 years ago this week, Blogger started rolling out HTTPS support to Blogspot blogs. Why is this significant? So HTTPS, HTTP Secure, makes an encrypted connection between your browser and the web server, which prevents man-in-the-middle attacks from seeing the data that's being transferred, including authentication, credentials, cookies, things like that. And it also prevents any of that data from being tampered with in transit. So it's much more secure. This was not new in 2015. Gmail, for example, was already using HTTPS at that point. But back in 2014, Google had made a big call for HTTPS everywhere. So they wanted all websites to use HTTPS. They even said that they were going to use HTTPS as a minor ranking signal in Google search. They said that was good, but there's a little incentive there. What happened in 2015 is a real acceleration of the push to adopt HTTPS for various websites. So Google moved all its advertising products to HTTPS. And as I said, they added HTTPS for blogger blogs using Blogspot. It came later for custom domain blogs. Google Search started indexing the HTTPS version of sites by default. And then there were a bunch of other sites other than Google that were doing this. The White House announced that all federal sites would be moving to HTTPS. Wikipedia and Reddit moved to fully HTTPS connections, and a lot of other sites followed suit. This was also accelerated by Let's Encrypt. Let's Encrypt launched in public beta in December 2015. It's a free, automated, and open certificate authority run for the public's benefit by the Internet Security Research Group. Basically, this allowed anyone with their own domain to get a certificate for free, making it easier to set up HTTPS on your website. So basically, there's all these tools now. No excuse. If you have a website, you should be moving to this more secure connection. But it took years for the majority of sites to switch over to HTTPS. This was in part because older devices and browsers didn't support it. It's part because there were some technical difficulties for implementation, especially if you had things embedded. You would then have this mixed thing where the embed was not using a secure connection and the rest of the site was. That would throw a lot of errors. And some of it was probably just inertia, not changing things. But 2015 marked the beginning of this major push that got it done. By 2018, 83% of top websites used HTTPS by default, and Chrome started marking sites that did not use HTTPS as insecure. There's another, is that a carrot or a stick? I'm not sure, but that pushed people. But it wasn't until 2021 that they could declare there was HTTPS everywhere. So that's where we are today. I think one thing that's really notable is that you don't even have to think about it. All the browsers accept it. Pretty much every site except some really old sites still support it. Jolyn says, there was a time we didn't need HTTPS security. Then folks got busy on the web doing funky stuff. Yeah, back in the old days. Although I think some of that was a bit naive. There's always going to be bad actors that try to do things. But of course, as more and more things move to the web, there is more and more risk at having an insecure connection. Andrew says Google shouldn't even index anything that doesn't use HTTPS. Well, that's a little harsh, but it wouldn't affect that many sites, right? Yeah, like Jolyn says, you still run into sites without security certificates. Yeah, I admit there's a site where I play a game. It's really old. I don't think it's secure, but I'm not worried about my game data being captured in the middle. So that's this week's updates. Thank you so much for joining me today. I will see you all next